Punk Revolution. Now, today we're going to be talking about Ticketmaster and Taylor Swift, and frankly, why Ticketmaster is a legitimately evil company that you should be directing all your anger towards, because I am seeing a lot of people on Twitter, including some hardcore Taylor Swift fans, who are frustrated, having an awful experience trying to get tickets to see Taylor Swift live, directing a lot of their anger at Taylor Swift, and I understand that. You're frustrated that you didn't get these tickets. The tickets were absurdly expensive, are being resold for even higher prices by people who are manipulating the market, buying the tickets and then reselling them. I understand why you're mad. And look, I am the biggest critic of Taylor Swift ever, so I am not afraid to dish out criticism towards Taylor Swift here. But in this situation, I really want everyone to be clear. Ticketmaster is your enemy. This is the time for Taylor Swift fans and the punks to unite against Ticketmaster, because Ticketmaster is just unbelievably awful, just terrible company, like literally leeches on society that serve no purpose other than to force themselves as the middleman that no one wants to deal with. They're horrible at what they do, and all they do is they take money from you, they take money from me, and they take money from artists. They're literally just leeches on society, and this has been a well-known issue for decades. So I'm going to walk you through the history here, and this is all stuff you can find right on Wikipedia, so this is not any sensationalized whatever. This is like cold hard facts. I want everyone to understand, like, in the fog of all the frustration and the arguing and finger pointing, Ticketmaster is where you should be pointing your fingers, because Ticketmaster stinks. And this is some history here, some interesting music history here. Back in the 1990s, there was this company called Ticketron. Here it is. Ticketron. And they were literally just like a competitor of Ticketmaster. Both Ticketmaster and Ticketron were two companies that did the exact same thing. They were both services where you could buy tickets on the internet using a computer. You can buy tickets on Ticketron, or you can buy it on Ticketmaster. Obviously, you can imagine both of them are basically two companies who are trying to leech as much money off the system as possible, make it easier for you to buy a ticket, and then we'll mark up the price a little bit so we can do our role as a leech. What basically happened here is, this is unbelievable. In 1991, it's right here, Ticketron was acquired by Ticketmaster. So what this basically means is literally Ticketmaster realized, man, people have a choice between buying tickets to see this show from Ticketron or buying the tickets through Ticketmaster. And if Ticketron and Ticketmaster are competing, we're not going to make as much money, so let's literally just buy our competitor. That way people don't have a choice over where they can buy their tickets, so they have to buy it from us, and because they have literally no choice but to buy it from us, we can have our fees higher. And this is actually a really shocking thing, because this is like just classic monopoly behavior. This is actually illegal. Throughout the entire 20th century history, there's been lots of political battles over monopolies and laws passed to help prevent monopolies, because there's a concern that if there's a monopoly, they could just leech off society. That's the concern with monopolies. In the 1990s, there was kind of like an ideological moment in American history. There was a lot more of an obsession over greed is good, the free market is good. If this is how the free market is playing out, the government will be hands off. Even though this is a classic case where the government should have stepped in and said, no, this is literally just a competitor buying another competitor. This should be illegal. Anyways, Ticketmaster buys it, and literally just in a matter of a few years later, there was a huge scandal where Pearl Jam, here's the Pearl Jam Wikipedia page, it's a long one, obviously. In the 90s, they were a massively successful band. And in 1993... you can read it all here. I'm not going to read it all here, but you can see it's a long story. In 1993, Pearl Jam was going to go on tour, and Pearl Jam realized, holy crap, the only way we can sell tickets is through Ticketmaster. We want to play a show here. We have to work through Ticketmaster, because Ticketmaster is gatekeeping these concert venues. Ticketmaster had contracts with all the big concert venues throughout the country, saying that those venues had to sell their tickets through Ticketmaster. So what Pearl Jam did was said, this is insane. It's literally just a middleman that's doing nothing besides charging an additional fee Pearl Jam is like, why? This is ridiculous. Why are we putting up with this? Obviously, Pearl Jam is like a, grunge kind of band, not afraid to give the middle finger to the system. And what they did was Pearl Jam took on Ticketmaster. They encouraged other bands to boycott. Pearl Jam went on a big tour where they had to perform at like charity events and like other small venues that didn't work with Ticketmaster, which was there was very few. They went years not playing any shows in the United States. And Pearl Jam, they took on Ticketmaster, and Pearl Jam lost. Okay, no one else was hopping onto the boycott. Pearl Jam lost a lot of money because these tours were unsuccessful. They weren't able to play any shows, and Ticketmaster won. Pearl Jam was like a massive, one of the biggest bands in the 90s, and they weren't able to tour because Ticketmaster were like leeches that had completely imagine you're the biggest band in the world. There's a big arena. Obviously, the arena wants you to play there, and Ticketmaster has planted their ass in between you two, and you try to take it on, and you lose, and Ticketmaster wins. So that was back in the 90s, all right? That's already absurd. There already should have been legal consequences for this. Ticketmaster should have been broken up after this. Obviously, merging with Ticketron was a horrendous action that just let them leech more. And then it gets even worse, because in 2010, and this is under Obama, by the way. This is when things are, supposedly, Obama coming into office as someone who's using more progressive rhetoric and seems a little bit more willing than, say, George Bush or Ronald Reagan to go after big corporations. Well, in 2010, under Obama's administration, and this was something that was also investigated by the Department of Justice, but with no consequences, Ticketmaster merged with Live Nation. So now you have an illegal merge between Ticketmaster and Ticketron in the 90s, and then you do that squared. So it's just like monopoly within a monopoly. Live Nation and Ticketmaster merge for the exact same reason. Live Nation was starting to sell their own tickets. Ticketmaster said, oh crap, if we have a competitor, we're not going to be able to leech as much off the system. So Ticketmaster merged with Live Nation in 2010. And it seems like it seems like the exact same setup. We had Ticketron and Ticketmaster merge. Few years later, the largest artist at the time, Pearl Jam, goes to war and loses. Now it's the same thing. Ticketmaster and then Live Nation merge, and now they're going to war with Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift lost the battle. Taylor Swift said, and I believe her for this, said, hey, this is going to be like one of the biggest tours ever. I haven't gone on tour in like 4 years or whatever, and I've released a ton of albums. Are you going to be able to handle this absurd amount of demand? Ticketmaster says yes, and Taylor Swift just has to take Ticketmaster's word on it, because Taylor Swift has no choice but to go through Ticketmaster. This is the easiest job. This is the easiest job in the world. All you do is one thing, which is sell tickets. It's the easiest thing in the world, and they screw it up. Instead, lots of bots are buying these tickets, and they're being resold for a ton of money, and they blew it. Ticketmaster wasn't able to properly sell the tickets, and now it's just like a bunch of tickets being resold on StubHub for an absurd amount of money. And I want you to understand this. When this scandal came out, when Ticketmaster and Live Nation were making headlines for pissing off the most popular artist in the world and pissing off the fan base of the most popular artist in the world, and they are a entity within the music industry, and you'd expect that to be a really bad thing. If you're an entity in the music industry, you'd expect them to not want to piss off some of the biggest and most powerful people in the music industry. When this started happening, the stock prices of Ticketmaster went unaffected. The stock prices did not go down. And the reason for that is because the people who own the stocks of Ticketmaster know very well that Ticketmaster is a freaking monopoly and can do some bad stuff and get away with it, and it's not going to impact their profits, okay? I'm using an Audio-Technica microphone right now. If there's a scandal where Audio-Technica is using fake parts or whatever in their microphones, people like me who buy microphones are going to be like, oh, maybe next time I buy a microphone, I'm going to buy one from Yamaha or Sony or whatever, who knows, somewhere else. and the value of Audio-Technica as a company would go down. With Ticketmaster, they can piss off the most popular artist in the world and the largest fan base in the world, and the stock price does not move an inch. The only time the stock price finally went down was when the Department of Justice, and this is something that is ongoing right now, the Department of Justice announced that even before this Ticketmaster scandal, they have been investigating Ticketmaster for being a monopoly. And when this whole Ticketmaster scandal came out, the Department of Justice made a statement, said this is something that they're investigating. And only after the United States government said, we're looking into maybe possibly enforcing very, very basic, simple, common sense, like just universally rational anti-monopoly laws. Under Bill Clinton, there was a merge between Ticketmaster and Ticketron. Under Obama, there was a merge between Ticketmaster and Live Nation. So we'll see if Joe Biden will finally be where the buck stops and if there will be any action to finally take down Ticketmaster. So that's kind of the history of Ticketmaster. They literally do nothing. They are leeches. It's it's comical how much of just like leeches, they don't do anything, okay? And I've said this before. If you ever want a glimpse into like what the most cruel, ugly, manipulative, hierarchical form of capitalism is, just look in the music industry, because it's just a complete game of leeches, of middlemen, people planting themselves trying on top of artists trying to leech money, and Ticketmaster is one out of many examples of that. It's absolutely absurd. But on the bright side, at least now, I'm telling you, I've been a critic of Taylor Swift, I've been a critic of her fans, and her fans aren't perfect the way they have been acting, saying this is like a traumatizing experience for them because they can't buy a ticket or whatever. That's definitely, ridiculous. And obviously I had to deal with this crap from Taylor Swift. I'm not a huge fan of Taylor Swift, as you all know, but can we please put that to the side for a second and say, this is just so bluntly a monopoly. They screwed over Pearl Jam, the grunge punks. Now they're screwing over, like, the punks have known for a long time that Ticketmaster sucks. Now they're screwing over Taylor Swift and Taylor Swift fans. Now is the time, like, don't direct your anger towards Taylor Swift, even if you don't like her music, even if you're frustrated. It's the time for all of us to say, Ticketmaster, you stink. You're finally being investigated properly by the Department of Justice. Hopefully, we need to continue that public backlash, that public outcry, because frankly, the more heat Ticketmaster gets from the public, the more likely that the Department of Justice is finally going to break them up, and that's going to save us money. We're not going to have to pay ridiculous fees. We're going to have better services because there's going to be competitors to Ticketmaster that need to actually make sure their platform does the bare minimum of not crashing and not letting bots buy all the tickets and stuff. And artists are going to make more money too. So, Punk Revolution now, Taylor Swift fans, welcome to the Punk Revolution. We've been waiting for you. So help us take down Ticketmaster, and also we're going to show you better music too, because Taylor Swift's music is not worth paying $50,000 for a ticket and crying over for not being able to see. Whatever. That's another story. Just like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Screw you, Ticketmaster. Punk Revolution now.